Welcome back to another episode of the Liberated Woman podcast. I'm so excited that you are joining us again for another episode full of nuggets of wisdom on your journey to liberation and sovereignty. Today, I am joined by a special guest. Her name is Barbara, and she's going to be speaking to us all about intuition today, which is a topic that I love to dive into. So, Barbara, welcome to the podcast. I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a huge pleasure to be here. Yeah, as you just said, my name is Barbara. I'm a body, mind, and intuition coach, and I just love supporting people on their journey to really dive into their unique intuitive powers, to really live a life from the heart, following their softness, stepping into life with ease and effortlessness, and to just bring out the best version of themselves, um, and for them to follow their soul's purpose in this lifetime.
Beautiful. I think that is something that we are all exploring, and the level of consciousness on this planet at this time is allowing more and more people to crack open to the understanding that they may not necessarily be following their soul's path, and they've just kind of fallen into a societal norm of what is expected of them, and people are understanding that and waking up to that and breaking away from that conditioning. So if somebody starts to have an understanding of, hang on a minute, like life as I know it is not quite right, there's something that's missing for me, I feel like there's more out there for me, or I feel like there's a different way of living, and they don't yet trust themselves to take that leap, or they don't yet trust themselves to listen to those voices inside of them, or the whispers of their heart that are guiding them into another way. What would you kind of how would you offer them, what words of wisdom would you offer them in those moments to start tapping into the trust of the intuition? Because I know from my past experiences, there were moments in my life that I definitely did not trust my intuition. And it led me on a really deep, dark path, actually, when I ignored my intuition. So, yeah, where would you start with that?
First of all, I would say it's absolutely normal,
Yeah.
very, very normal. If this is happening for you, um, yeah, all good. You know, it happens to most of us. Most of us don't listen to our intuition at the beginning. I didn't listen to my intuition all the time. And basically it depends. It's obviously everybody has a very unique journey, but sometimes, as you just said, we really need to go into the darkness to realize, okay, this isn't working either. If I just ignore this voice, this sensation or whatever I'm sensing within me, and in the end it's a choice. And one of the questions that I like to ask myself when we're at a choice point, and we're very often at choice points, especially in today's day and age, where we have big decisions because we feel something isn't quite right, and we know something is awaiting us, but we don't know exactly what it is, and we kind of feel in the void and we don't know where life is taking us, is it's easy to say follow your heart, but we don't often know what that means. It's difficult to kind of grasp that if we're not fully connected with our heart 24/7, which, to be honest, I know very few people who can live from the heart 24/7. A question that really, really helps me, or two questions. One is, what would the highest, most evolved version of myself do right now in this situation? So we're really focusing on that best version of me. And the other question that is even more kind of more tangible and practical is, if I would have one more year to live, what would I do then? Because very often I can say I'm just in a situation where life is asking me to embrace something that I am fearful of, because I'm afraid of being hurt, of things not working out. And literally the last couple of days I've been asking myself, okay, would I go for this if I had only one more year to live? And it's a very clear yes, because there's nothing to lose then. And I know it's what my heart really wants. And I want to live as fully as possible, in that if I were to say I only have one more year to live, I would go for that. So I think that is a question that often helps, because we step away from what will others think? Will this work out in 5 years' time? We step away from many of the kind of questions that our mind comes up and tries to kind of manipulate us with. So yeah, that those two questions are questions that I would say ask yourself those, and depending on those answers, I mean, some people answer the question and still feel fearful of going through with it, which is understandable as well. And that is just literally, it depends on you. Who do you want to be? What kind of a person do you want to be? And I often ask myself, do I want to be the person who gets stuck in my mind, who doesn't take that leap of faith because my mind is telling me all the stories of what might go wrong, what not might work out? Or do I want to be that person who says, yes, I say yes to life. I trust life, that life is giving me this opportunity. If it weren't meant for me, I wouldn't be granted this opportunity. And also, I mean, the mind only knows the past. It only knows what has been, and it just passed into the future, which is not our potential. Our potential lies to the future. So I don't feel that the mind is the best counselor in these kind of situations. And obviously it's a whole other story to kind of, how can we detach from the mind? How can we not get locked up in the mind?
Yeah, thank you so much. There was just a small part of what you just said that blanked out completely, and all I could see was you mouthing. So those people watching on YouTube will be able to see you, but for those that are listening on the podcast, do you mind just backtracking a little bit? You were saying that the mind only knows the past, and then as soon as you went into, I think, about to explain, but there's like an infinite potential in the future which the mind hasn't grasped yet.
Sure.
Just kind of backtrack and just share that, because I think it was a really important piece of information that
Yes, definitely.
there could be like a little snippet, a nugget of wisdom that wants to be
Sure.
heard.
So the mind only knows the past, and what it does, it copy pastes the past into the future, but that is far beyond, or it's never where our potential can take us. So if we just follow the mind, we just copy paste past into the future, but our future can be so much more if we step beyond the mind, if we follow our hearts, if we follow our intuition. That's when we can really, we maybe have to step, or very often we have to step out of our comfort zone and confront the fears or the blocks that are standing in our way, but it opens us up and allows us to step into a whole new version of ourselves, and to experience our aliveness, our beingness at a whole new level.
Yeah, and I think there's you know, for a lot of people, I know when I first ignored my intuition, like I remember a very big event in my life where I ignored my intuition. I've shared this story before on the podcast, that when I was in my abusive relationship and I was very young, I was 22, I was in my first year of teaching, and all my friends were starting to move in with their partners, and we were so young, and part of me was like, well, I think I should be doing that because, you know, I'm 22 and I better get married. And it was just so far beyond what I think now at that time. And we were looking for flats together in London, and my whole body was saying, don't do it. Like I felt sick. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, the tightness, the contraction, like my whole body was a big fat no. But my mind took over and said, do it because you might never have somebody else. And you know, like, and I did move in with him, and it was an absolute disaster, like to you know, so bad that I was there only 6 weeks before I decided to leave. And at that point, luckily, like my survival instinct kind of even took over my intuition of a thought of, I have to get out of here or I might die. Like it was a decision that was very much like, I actually can't take this anymore. Like he's going to kill me. So but I remember for so long after that, like mistrusting my own decision making abilities and my own intuition. And then following in that same year, I had a very, very bad car accident. And luckily, I dropped a friend off back at his house before I had the accident, because had he been in the car, obviously he would have been involved too. And that would have been like an extra layer of like guilt and mistrust. But even at that point with the car accident, I remember taking a turning that I would never normally take on that route to go home, and that accident happened on that route. And for ages I blame myself. Why did I go down that road? Why didn't I listen to myself? And you know, these are not like small things like, oh, I should have taken the umbrella before I left the house. That these are not like small, you know, things that we blame ourselves on. These were two huge events in my life that for years afterwards I blamed myself for making these poor decisions, and then was kind of very severed off from my intuition. And it took a long time to connect back to that trust in my own gnosis, in my own knowing. And it was when I started to do that that all of my psychic gifts just came online. And after that, it was like, whoa, I know way too much. I know way more. And maybe there was a protective mechanism. Maybe that had to happen when I was younger, because I had all those gifts come online at that age, I might not have been able to handle it at all. Potentially, or maybe I needed to go through that in order to come to the other side. And it's very interesting that I think a lot of women, especially, struggle to trust their intuition, because we've been told other stories, because we've been dismissed, because we've been told we're crazy, hysterical, we've been shut down, we've been interrupted, and no one wants to hear what we have to say. And in past, you know, past her story, it was like, you're a witch and you're accused of being the village, the crazy village, the crazy women in the village, and the old woman in the village, and the witch. Um and there's like a fear of that power that we hold within us as women to tap into our intuition, because we are so powerful. And it's instinctual also as a mother. Like we have to have that instinct to protect our children, and to protect our tribe, to protect our community. So when women first kind of go through this journey of tapping into their intuition, what kind of common threads do you find amongst these women that stop them from trusting that fully? Is it what you were speaking about before, about the mind, the copy paste into the future, the fear? Or is there something, do you think, even deeper going on with them?
I definitely feel it's the mind, but it's also trusting themselves, trusting their power, really acknowledging how super powerful we are. And I'm very honest, I'm still learning to see how powerful I am. I am still afraid of parts of my power, very much also because of all these kind of topics that have to do with being a witch, being too powerful, too much for the society. Those are definitely things that I see coming up. So self-doubt, but also just self-love, self-appreciation, celebrating ourselves. In so many ways, we've been put down. This is what we have been taught, and we've been stripped of our intuition. We live in a very rational world where right from a young age, we go into school, and what do we get taught? We do not get taught how to listen to our heart. We get taught how to do maths, how A and B equals C, and you have a logical, rational approach to certain things. We're lucky if we have some music lessons, if we have some kind of arts and crafts that maybe kind of brings forth more of that creativity, more of that intuitive flow. But generally, we live in a society that doesn't really support that. So I definitely think it's the society. It's us being put down as women. It's fear of our greatness, fear of our power, our immense power, as you just mentioned. Lack of self-trust. And also, what I find is very helpful is if we start listening to our intuition with the little decisions, because that way we can, like, I sometimes say intuition or intuitive work is a bit like a muscle that we need to train. And if we want to heave a hell of a lot of weight without having trained, doing little weights beforehand, it's going to be really, really strenuous. However, if we train and do little weights, little bit by little bit, little bit by little bit, then when we have to heave that tremendous weight, we'll be ready for it, because we know we've done the little ones. The little ones, we have trained that muscle. We can do that. And obviously that's not the case for everybody. Some people have sudden awakenings, downloads, where everything comes on board all in one go. And like you said, it can be scary, because when our intuitive gifts really come on board, it can almost be too much. And many people also struggle with that. Then they are too sensitive, too much. So I always believe that whatever amount of intuition that we are being or is opening up within us is exactly the amount that is right. So, you know, it's also normal for people, even highly intuitive people like myself, that I have periods where I have blank. I can't get in touch with my intuition, but I know now. At the beginning, I started questioning myself and thought, oh, what's this? What's that? Now I know I can probably still pick up on many more things than people who are not connected with their intuition. But for my standards, I feel like I'm feeling nothing. But that is divinely aligned, because I'm not supposed to be getting too much information, because on one level or another, it would be too much for my maybe physical, emotional, or mental system to handle in that moment. And so also when we do get these mega downloads, I trust and I believe that we are ready for it to handle it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good analogy around the weights, just kind of like a practicing of building up the muscle memory and the nervous system to be like, do trust that. And I guess it's noticing where you have listened to your intuition and what the outcome of that is. Like, oh, I listened to that and I'm really glad I did that. I'm really glad I took the umbrella. I'm really glad I said that to a friend. I'm really glad I, whatever it was. I remember before we left the UK to come to Latin America, there was a day that I was driving to the countryside in Norfolk, and for some reason I insisted on specifically waiting 5 more minutes before I left the house, and I was like, I have to say goodbye to you properly, to my partner. I was like, I have to say goodbye to you properly, like please give me a kiss, like I have to say goodbye to you properly. And I saw like an accident in my mind's eye. And on the way to where I was going, on like a country road, there was a major accident, and I thought, well, if I'd have left 5 minutes early and I hadn't seen it, maybe that would have been me. But there was like a real sense of like, no, I trust myself. I trust it when I get these messages. I trust it when I have to do this certain thing. And then just clocking up those moments as like proof to yourself in a way, if you want to come from the rational mind. But hey, I did listen and I was right. Like, oh, like I'm not going to gaslight myself over this. Actually, I have that ability. And the more that you can kind of as well connect to that part of you and notice those moments where you did listen to your intuition and it served you really well, that's kind of like giving your body a bank of information that stores inside, that tells you that you are on the right path, that you are listening,
Totally.
that it's nudging you in the right direction.
And I also believe one thing is to listen to the intuition when it kind of speaks to us in whatever way that it speaks to us. But I think another thing that I get my clients to do very often is to actively tap into it. So I tell them, have two different kind of meals or foods in front of you and feel into it, or put your focus into it and see which one feels better for you, because that way you're in a situation where you are consciously focusing on tapping into your intuition, and you can practice that way. So that kind of also informs your intuition. Okay, she's open for it. She's ready for this. She's trying to bring more of this on board. So when the intuition speaks to us and we're not tapping into it, we're more, the channels are more open and we can more readily hear it, and we're more prepared to act on it. So I think it's important to use the intuition from both from these both perspectives or angles, to on one hand tap into it consciously, and on one hand receive it consciously.
Yeah, I love that. Beautiful. There's one more question that I would love to ask you, which is something that I ask all my guests on the podcast. And I guess it's related to owning the power that you have around listening to your heart, following the whispers of your soul, and
Mm.
tapping back into your intuitive power. And that question is, what does being a liberated woman mean to you?
It means allowing your softness to come through on all levels, trusting that you have the power, you have the strength to hold yourself, whatever comes your way. Because I feel as women, very often we feel we need to protect ourselves, because what if I'm too sensitive, too vulnerable for this world? And so we hold back our softness, which is our superpower. And the more we can ease and soften into the delicate parts of us, that's when I feel, obviously it's one of many different aspects of power that we have as women, because we also have that kind of that Kali power, so that destructive power. But that is what I see many women struggling with in a world that is very masculine and very focused on being tough and hard and everything. So it means allowing our softness. It means really connecting the womb, the heart, and the higher intuitive centers, and being in living as a channel, living as love, walking as love, being as love, and knowing that our presence is enough. Our presence has such a strong impact. If we just be that, that's all we need to be. We don't need to do much. Once we are connected and in that state of softness and beingness, whoa, we can move mountains. So yeah, that's my wish for all women, that we can all group together and remind each other of how powerful we are in our mere beingness, in our softness, in our sensitivity, in our vulnerability, in our emotionalness, in everything that we are.
Beautiful. So to be liberated is to be in your softness and to just to be in your beingness without the need to be in the doingness.
Totally, totally.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank
I'm
you
going
so
to
much for
post.
having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to post your links to your social media in the show notes. So if anybody wants to
Fantastic.
connect with you, they can. Thank you so much to those of you that are tuning in once again to either listen to this podcast episode, or if you're watching it on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in once again. Every single time you tune in and you watch this and you are listening to another woman's wisdom, whether it's my wisdom or I have a guest on like Barbara who's sharing her wisdom, you are supporting your liberation and you're supporting the liberation of others around you. Because when you do this work, you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your ancestors, you're doing it for your legacy, and you are the cycle breaker. You are the bridge between those worlds. And it is so powerful to break these ancestral chains of harshness, of the doing, of the patriarchal way of being, and come back into your feminine softness in a world that has taught you otherwise. It's a beautiful journey back into your liberation. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you love this episode, please comment, leave a review, share it on your social media, tag us. We love to spread the love. And until next week, I wish you a beautiful, magical day.